The Curse. Debt takes its toll. To no one had this ever seemed clearer than to a 61-year-old farmer named Oliver Coolidge, who languished in the Woodstock Common Jail in Windsor County, Vermont, in the spring of 1849. Coolidge was behind bars because he owed a neighbor, Frederick Wheeler, $24.23. He had not honored a contract because he lacked the money to honor it. Now his debt had climbed to $29.48 because the Justice of the Peace had ruled that he had to carry the costs of the creditor, $5, and a fine of 25 cents for the serving of papers. Oliver Coolidge's fate was all the more troubling because some of his relations were faring well. The Coolidge name enjoyed respect throughout Windsor County, in the neighboring state of Massachusetts, and across the rest of New England. Carlos Coolidge, a distant cousin, was serving as governor of Vermont. Coolidge's older brother, Calvin, owned the family farm at Plymouth Notch, a hamlet not far from Woodstock. Oliver's rage built as he thought of his brother. Over the years, Oliver had deeded land or land rights to Calvin. One of the properties involved had been called the Limekiln Lot. The lot lay on a hill in Plymouth Notch. Some of those transfers Oliver had thought temporary. He had given one piece of land, he reminded Calvin in a letter, against your promise that you would redeed at any time. But now Calvin would not give the farm back. The Calvin Coolidges had decided to keep the land in the family. This meant the Calvin Coolidge branch. This was especially bitter. Calvin might pass land that had been Oliver's on to his own son, Calvin Galusha Coolidge, or to a grandson. Cases like Oliver's had always been common. Back in 1786, a Massachusetts man named Daniel Shlaes had led a rebellion against heavy taxes. The aggrieved followers of Shlaes called for a time when there would be no more courts, nor collectors, nor sheriffs, nor lawyers. Ever since then, New Englanders had quarreled over whether debt was the fault of the borrower, the lender, or those who issued the currency. They had quarreled, too, over the merits of punishments for debt. To sit in prison for debt, or a charge related to debt, was perverse. Vermont laws were changing so that debt alone could not justify imprisonment. A few years earlier, a book about the sin of sanctimony and the grace of forgiveness, A Christmas Carol, had been published. Its villain was the miser Ebenezer Scrooge. The journals of New England featured A Christmas Carol on their Christmas list. Its author, Charles Dickens, often pointed out the trap of the debtor's situation and the absurdity of debtor's prison. That same year, 1849, newspapers were serializing a new Dickens work in which one of the main characters, Mr. Micawber, landed in debtor's prison. It was a text older than Dickens that sprang to Oliver Coolidge's mind, the Bible. To Oliver it seemed that his brother Calvin and his sister-in-law resembled Ananias and Sapphira in the Acts of the Apostles. These two had sold their land and pretended to give the entire proceeds to the apostle Peter, but secretly withheld part of what they had received. For that, God had struck Ananias and Sapphira dead. The farmer blamed his brother for participating in the events that had led him to be shut up in jail, and accused the brother of pressuring his son, Calvin Galusha, to go along with him in whatever scheme furnished the precondition for Oliver's loss of land. You teased Galush until it was done, the farmer wrote. That year, spring came late to Vermont, with heavy snows into April. As Oliver weighed the damage of debt, the demons closed in. Lame in one leg from birth, Coolidge had never been able to farm as well as the others. The land they all farmed was rocky in any case, but his land was of poorer quality than his brother's. Oliver and his wife, Polly, had many more children than the rest, and though many were grown, and some had died, there were others still to care for. His family had seen, as he wrote in one letter from the prison, much sickness. On Central Street, outside the jail, the traffic of carriages and tradesmen moved all day long. From behind the walls and the stone fence, the farmer sent out despairing letters in his idiosyncratic spelling to one family member after another. To his niece